Okay.
I think that kind of clarifies to a degree. So did I? Okay, so today's topic is Shavuot, the hidden holiday. And the reason I'm referring to it as the hidden holiday, were you here Tuesday morning?
Indeed.
Okay, so there's going to be some overlap. You'll pardon me. Okay? So, as we discussed Tuesday morning in our Parsha class, the Torah is very, very explicit when it discusses the holiday of Pesach. Right? The holiday of Pesach, of Passover, the Torah is very, very clear, very explicit that is all about the Exodus from Egypt. And many things, including the Tefillin, the Torah, when discussing the Tefillin, says that it's in order that you will remember, right, that I took you out of Egypt. Okay, so, or by Bechor, that I took you out of Egypt. Over and over, the Torah connects Pesach to Yetziat Mitzrayim, the holiday of the Exodus from Egypt. When the Torah discusses the holiday of Sukkot, there it says very, very clearly that it's in order that you will remember Ki b'Sukkot hoshavti et bnei Yisroel, that I had the children of Israel in Sukkot when we left Egypt and we were traveling through the desert. What are these Sukkot? What are they referring to? So there are two classic explanations that are given, either in the Gemara and the Talmud. Each of these are represented by one of the opinions. One of them is Sukkot Mamish. Literally, we live in the booths on Sukkot, the time of Sukkot, tabernacles, in order to remember the booths that we lived in as we were in the desert. And others say the booths represent the Anane HaKavod, the clouds of glory that accompanied us, protected us, shepherded us as we went through the desert. However, when it comes to Shavuot, which is the third of the Shalosh Regalim, the third of the three pilgrimage holidays, the Torah does not say a word about what we associate it with. We associate it, and you do the dates, it works out. That was the time of what we call Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. Now, when we say the giving of the Torah, there's often a lot of confusion with that. If I would say the giving of the Torah, so you might say, well, what is the giving of the Torah? Audience participation. What is the giving of the Torah?
The Ten Commandments.
Okay, the Ten Commandments. So one might think the Ten Commandments being brought down on the stone tablets, but it was not.
No.
Right? That was 40 days later, with not the best results, and then another 40 days, and another 40 days, and then the Luchot Shniyot, the second tablets being given to us on Yom Kippur. Right? And the actual Torah, Ramban, well, different opinions, either was written in part through the desert and complete at the end of the 40 days, or was written in completion at the end of the 40 years, excuse me. But the Torah that we have was not given at Mount Sinai. But the Matan Torah is that relationship that was built, and the covenant that was made, and that was with our hearing the Ten Commandments. Now, we would imagine that if our Judaism is essentially based upon this revelation, right? We've discussed many times, right? Every religion basically needs to have its revelation story. Otherwise, how does any mortal physical being know what it is that the divine, what it is that God wants? So every religion needs to have its revelation story. And Judaism is unique in that the revelation was to an entire nation as opposed to any one individual. Right? I could present to all of you, not all that convincingly, but I could try to present to all of you that I had a dream last night and I was visited by God and was supposed to start Cinerism. And with that we will start our new offshoot of Judaism called Cinerism. Now, as ridiculous as that might sound, if you look at the start of many religions which claim hundreds of thousands, if not millions of adherents, so that's what it is. People discovered these tablets with a message that no one else ever saw, and they were lost soon after. I mean, that's how many a religion has begun. Judaism is unique in that as a mass revelation, it's not the sort of thing that could be easily introduced into time, right? And if it was introduced at a later point, then who was the great introducer? Who was the person who let us all know about this? So that is what is unique about Judaism. But we would imagine if Shavuot, which is the holiday about Matan Torah, about the giving of the Torah, about this revelation, the Torah is nondescript. It doesn't mention that. It does call it a mincha chadasha, a new offering, and one will soon see, the third source we'll see is going to deal with that. So let's go through. So again, in the Torah itself, you will not find any mention of a connection between Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot, which is this Sunday night, Saturday night Sunday, Sunday night Monday, and the giving of the Torah. Let us see what the classic commentators say on this.
Isn't there a Torah commandment to eat chocolate ice cream?
No, Dove, sorry. We wish there was, but there's no Torah commandments for chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream, or cheesecake.
Look harder.
Yeah.
There's a general commandment.
But we don't need a Torah commandment for everything.
General commandment.
It's hidden.
Right.
Okay, so Ramban writes on Vayikra, right? He writes with Siva b'chag hamatzot shiva yomim v'kedusha l'fneim l'achareyim. Right, and we were commanded on the Chag, the holiday of the Matzot, to have 7 days of holiness, right, with a Yom Tov day, beginning day 1 and day 7, of course, outside of Israel, so it's 8, days 2, right, days 1, 2, and 7, 8, but essentially the Torah Din is a 7-day holiday, day 1, Umana mimenu tishim v'arba yom, and then we count 49 days, v'kidesh yom shmini, and then we sanctify. Interesting the way the Ramban views this. Then we sanctify the 8th day, kashmini shel chag, like the 8th day of Sukkot. Now Sukkot we have 1 day of holiday, followed by 6 days of Sukkot, and then Sukkot ends. We leave the Sukkot, put down the lulav and etrog. All the vestiges of Sukkot are over, and we have another holiday that comes immediately on the 8th day called Shmini Atzeret. We combine that with Simchat Torah. So what do we have? We have holiday, we have intermediary days, then we have a new holiday. So Ramban is comparing the 7 days of Pesach to the first day of holiday, then the 7 weeks that we count with some overlapping, 2 intermediary days, and then Shavuot will be sanctified like the 8th day of Sukkot. And all the days that we've been counting now from Pesach to Shavuot are like intermediary days called Chol HaMoed, the intermediary days, Bein Rishon Vashmini B'Chag, as they are between the 1st and 8th day of Sukkot. So what is this next holiday? And we mentioned before, why would it be that it's all considered one big holiday? And we've explained that really it is the holiday of freedom, of emancipation, of liberation. And there is the physical freedom that took place with the Exodus, and then there is the spiritual freedom that we attain with this revelation. And therefore it's all like one big holiday, with the Chol HaMoed being between the V'hu Yom Matan Torah. And this is the day of the giving of the Torah, She'her'em bo et Isho HaGedolah, that God showed us His great fire, Udvarav shamu mitoch ha'esh, and His words were heard from amidst that fire on the top of Sinai. Ulekach yikru'u Rav Seinu Zal b'chol makom Chag HaShavuot Atzeret. Interesting. That's why the sages, when they refer to Shavuot, they call it Atzeret. Atzeret, it means a gathering in, right? Almost like a conclusion, right? Because just like we have Shmini Atzeret as the last day of Sukkot, Shavuot is Atzeret, it's almost the last day of the whole Pesach season. Right? Kihu kayom shmini shechag shekara kasav kain. It's like the 8th day of Sukkot that the Torah itself calls it Atzeret. Okay. But again, we haven't touched upon what we call Ikar Chaser Min HaSefer, that it has not been mentioned at all in the Torah. The Sefer HaChinuch is a fascinating book. The Sefer HaChinuch goes through his tally of the 613 mitzvot. He connects them to the different parshiot, the different Torah readings of each week, and he gives us the background and the shoresh, the root of each of the mitzvot. And here he writes as follows: Yisroel, the entire essence of the Jewish people is through the Torah. And our understanding is as follows, based on the first Rashi. It was because of the Torah. Right? He says, and the heavens and earth and Jewish people were created for its sake. Meaning, right, if we are believing in a God, and He wants us to live our lives a certain way, and the purpose of our existence of the creation is for this free choosing species known as mankind to connect to Him and live our lives in a certain manner, then He needs to let us know what He wants from us. Right? He needs to let us know that. Therefore, the purpose of creation, which is this relationship that we form with God, needs to be through a Torah and through a people who will fulfill that, who will create this bond. And this is the reason why we had the Exodus, redeemed from Egypt, in order that we will receive the Torah and fulfill it. As God said to Moses, right from the get-go, when He appeared to him at the burning bush, He said, this will be the sign that I've sent you. When you take out this nation, you will serve God on this mountain. Or Cain. And if that's the case, if that's the reason, if that's the essence of Israel, the reason for which we were redeemed, and for all that, the greatness that was attained, Nistavina, we're commanded limnot, to count. We count. Immediately we start counting. If that was the purpose of the Exodus, we have to start counting right away. From the time we left Egypt to giving the Torah, in order to build up in ourselves this tremendous desire to this momentous day. Right? Well, right, as he says, as a slave yearns and counts the days, or I would say as all the kids have been counting the days until their graduation. Right? You have the days you count, you can't wait. Counting is showing that I'm completely vested in reaching that point. Okay? So once again, this is essential to us. Now, why is it, or how is it, that the Torah then at least alludes to this aspect of Shavuot, of this harvest, of this conclusion of the counting that we do? So the Kli Yakar explains as follows. The pasuk said, the verse said, "V'kraftem mincha chadasha laHashem." You will offer a new offering to God. Siman liyom matan Torah. This is the sign. This is an indication of the day of the giving of the Torah. Ki haTorah tzricha liyot chadasha etzel adam. Why is Shavuot referred to as the new offering? Because the Torah needs to be considered new to a person b'chol yom, every day. Ki'ilu hayom kibla mehar Sinai, as if he received it that day on Mount Sinai. You know, it's interesting. We have a special blessing, a special bracha, Kiddush Levana, that we do once a month. right, when we're at least 3 days into the new month, the new lunar month, we say Kiddush Levana. And in one of the paragraphs that we say there, we say, if this would be our only chance to serve God, that would have been amazing, right? But of course, we have many other opportunities, right? We daven 3 times a day, But imagine on the day the Torah was given. Imagine the connection. Imagine the feeling that there was. So therefore, he says, "Umashalo nizkar b'Torah b'feirush." The reason the Torah does not explicitly say "Ki yom zeh matan Torah," this is the day of the giving of the Torah. Shal matan Torah lo ratzah Hashem lahagbil yom yadua. God did not want to limit to a specific day. Right? A person needs to feel, right, if this was, if the Torah would specify this is the day of giving the Torah, so what would we have? Oh, that's the day that we commemorate that wonderful event that took place thousands of years ago when the Torah was given. Okay, back to the warrior game now. Okay, back to work. Right? Oh, it's wonderful. Maybe we'll even, make sure we all wear a kippah that has like these tablets, right? For that day, right? just to commemorate that. It's not meant to be a dead historical event. And that's why our sages say, once it's an old thing, what happens? We get bored with it. Oh, been there, done that. The Torah is meant to be something that is alive, that is renewed on every single day. In truth, every time a person opens up the Torah and reads and learns and studies, there is something new that is found. Therefore, the only hint that we have to the giving of the Torah is this giving of a new offering. That the Torah is a new gift that we receive every single day. A couple of Friday nights ago I mentioned, it was Friday night, maybe it was Shabbos day, I forget. I think it's Shabbos day. An example is given. Imagine if every morning $86,400 was put into your account. Every single morning. But the only catch is that by the end of the day, whatever hasn't been spent is removed from the account. But the next day, $86,400 will be deposited again with the same system every day. Right? So if that were the case, we would make sure to $86,400 will be spent every day to make sure to utilize that money, right? It's just going out, lots of Jaguars, or, right, so $86,400 is the amount of seconds, right? 24 by 60 by 6 times 60 times 60 is the amount of seconds that there are in a day. And every morning, right, or let's say every morning or whatever time it is, right, we're credited 86,400 of those dollars, of that commodity, and we've got to utilize that, right? The person knew, right, that they had limited time. The person was given a gift. I'm given a gift now. We jump in, we utilize it, right? After a while, we get a little bit bored with it, right? And if the person knows that he's got 1 day left, he makes sure to utilize it. So therefore, the Torah was simply referred to as a mincha chadasha, as this new offering, that we have that approach and that attitude when we come into this our approach to Torah, not a historical event, but a daily occurring event. Yes, Dov?
What I was going to say is when the people were in Egypt and they're slaves, a lot of them had broken arms, legs, they were all messed up. When Hashem revealed to them, Hashem put them all whole. So we not only it's new, the Torah is new. We're going to be new too.
Okay.
Every day.
Nice idea. Okay. The next source is from the Pele Yoetz, who explains Atzeret hu Chag Kadosh Ma'od. This Shavuot is a very holy holiday. Asher bo kiddishanu Hashem yitbarach. b'Torah tov v'mitzvotav. Right? Every time we do a mitzvah, we make the blessing that God sanctified us with His mitzvot. Well, it's all coming from here. This was the day where God sanctified us with His Torah and with His mitzvot. Ubacha ban mikol ha'amim. And He chose us amongst the nations, liot lo la'am segula, to be this treasured nation. V'ilav hayom edekagarim, kastom hayinu lamar dimino, v'chulo shemayim va'aretz, lo nitkaimu. Right? Were it not for this, then we would have no idea of what is the will of God. And, Sodom and Gomorrah, he mentioned Sodom and Gomorrah, right? They actually had a whole system in place. It wasn't something that they were cruel people. They had a certain shita, a certain approach to life, a certain philosophic, religious approach to life. Their philosophic approach to life, right, we hear about crazy laws that they had, right? If someone would pass through, he would get beaten up, right? And then he would have to, if they would go to court, he would have to pay the person who beat him, right? Famous Medrash, I think Medrash says that Eliezer, the son of Abraham, passed through there, right? And someone jumped him and beat him. So Eliezer dragged this guy to court. And the judge assessed the damages and says damages are, 200, whatever it was. Eliezer, you need to pay your accoster. He said, what type of ruling is that? So that's the rule over here. He says, no problem. He clocks the judge and says, you owe me, I owe him. The two of you work it out. I'm out of here. Right? But it was based on a theory. Right? It was based on a theory. The theory was that if God has given it to me, it's meant to be for me and not for you. And therefore we're going to institute a whole system of laws to make sure that no one else comes, right? Sodom and Gomorrah was the epitome of, it was the first gated community. No one else is allowed to come in. If you are not of means, don't come here and take away from that which we have. Famously, we know that the Medrash again tells, Rashi brings a story of a girl who helped out a poor person. So what was the punishment? She was put up onto a wall and smothered with honey that she got stung with bees, right? Until she had died, right? Again, what was the idea? One bee sting, all right, it's a nuisance, but it's not going to do anything too bad, right? 3, 4, 5, maybe a slight allergic reaction, right? But 100 or 1,000, person could die, right? That's what they felt. Once you allow one person to come through over here, right? So that'll be just a little bit. They'll deplete us slightly, but then one's going to bring more. It's going to bring more. It's going to bring more, and then we're all dead, right? And that's not the will of God. So there is no shortage of crazy beliefs that a person, or crazy beliefs, or self-serving, stubborn beliefs that a person can concoct to say this is the will of God, right? So if not the Torah being given, it says we could have been like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? That would have been our morality. That would have been our system, and therefore. Therefore, it is appropriate to celebrate this day. And it's not possible not to. Ki tov lanu tovat haTorah v'amitzvot mikol tovot ha'olam hazeh mikol chayei ha'olam haba. Right? Amazing, beautiful. The Torah and mitzvot. When a person is involved, fully involved in Torah and mitzvot, there's nothing like it. Listen to the next story. Rabbi Aaron Kotler once delivered a lecture in which he remarked that a person who provides the funds for Torah study will enjoy the same reward in the next world as the Torah scholars themselves. This is on the very bottom still of that second page, right? This is a lecture, right? And we know this is learned, well, it's famously referred to as a Yisachar Zevulun relationship. Yisachar and Zevulun were two of the tribes. Zevulun were the merchants. Yisachar were the scholars. And Zevulun would support the scholars and receives equal reward. After his lecture, he was approached by a wealthy man who challenged him. Rabbi, why should I bother to exert myself to study the Torah? All I have to do is make donations to Torah institutions, and I'll be assured immeasurable reward in the world to come. those who support receive the same world to come as those who are studying. That's the Yisachar Zvulun relationship. So why should I challenge? Why should I toil? Why should I work hard? Barikala regarded the wealthy man with the expression of utter seriousness and responded, "It's true that your portion in the world to come will be the same, but your life in this world will not be comparable." Wow. Wow. Right? Your life in this world will not be the same without it. That is, the Torah and the mitzvot are a way that we physical people, physical beings in the physical world have a chance to touch that which is beyond and connect to that. As we say, I mentioned before, Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, that God has sanctified us with the mitzvot. When we're doing an act, that is when we make that blessing. That is what changes the person. And the body can become sanctified. I heard this story from a neighbor of mine in Israel whose brother was one of the people. So I heard it from a person whose brother was one of the people. There's a Mr. Shifra, Rav Shifrin in Telstone. He wasn't really connected to the yeshiva. Yeah. The story is that where the Vilna Gaon, the Gaon of Vilna, was buried, the government was going to be building a highway. And therefore, that highway was going to be going through the Jewish cemetery. And therefore, bodies they needed to reinter. Now, the Vilna Gaon himself was buried in that cemetery. And you need to have people who are going to dig up the grave of the Vilna Gaon and move it. There were 4 people who were chosen. And these 4 people, they fasted, they went to the mikvah, they went through serious preparations for this holy task. When, and again, I heard it from the person, from one of the 4's brother told me this story from his brother. When they dug down and they got to the grave of the Vilna Gaon, whatever else was there had, the wood had already, right? They found the body there, laying there intact, with rosy cheeks, like a person who had laid down for an afternoon nap. And they, of course, moved the body to the new place where it's going to be buried. Now, before we go to the story continues, our understanding is the blessing we say whenever we do a mitzvah is Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, that you've sanctified us with the mitzvot. And there are certain people who will reach this point that their body becomes so sanctified that it is just ready for the next stage. It does not need to decompose. The story continues that none of these 4 lived out that year.
Oh my God.
Now, why that is, you have to ask God. Right? Different thoughts that I've heard on that. Well, I guess we can go from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. One way is, if you touch a fire, you have to touch a fire. But if you touch a fire, there are going to be consequences. And you touch this kedusha, this holiness, right? That's one end of the spectrum. At the other end that I prefer is that after having done that act of kindness for this holy person,
You don't need
then
to
at that point there was no reason
just
to continue going on through life. They had reached such a high point that the Vilna Gaon had invited them to come up to the heavens and join him in his mechitza, in his area, and there was no point anymore in their going through the daily rigors that this world offers, even with all the mitzvot that are available to us, but there wasn't much more for them to do. So, as Rav Kotler, as Zatzal told this person, it's not for the next world, it's for this world. I mentioned this before. I have a group that I study with once a week. It's dwindling because they're finishing their process.
Oh.
But it was a group who were converting, and I asked them about what are they finding the most difficult, and what are they finding the most rewarding. Thanks,
Yeah.
Dov. Right, and there was a broad range of the most difficult. But almost without exception, the most rewarding was keeping Shabbos.
Yeah.
You think that the most restrictive? They said that was the most rewarding. That was the most rewarding.
They hadn't gotten to the summer Shabbos.
Huh?
They hadn't gotten to the summer.
I'm sorry.
To the summer Shabbos, the long.
Those are even better.
What about a lounge?
Those are even better, right? And with everything, we could always focus on the restrictions, or we could focus on the blessings and the liberation, actually, the freedom that comes along with that. There's a sefer called the Siftei Chaim from Chaim Friedlander, where he goes into deeper understandings. And he writes as follows: Haita zu amuna mitoch re'iyah nuvu'it v'chushit chol ha'am ro'im et ha'kolot. Right? This faith was based on a vision, a tangible vision. The verse says, very strangely, all the people saw the voices. They saw the sounds. Right? How do you see sounds?
Subtitles.
The sages said, Ro'in et hanishma. They saw that which was heard. Meaning, Davar hanishma hu karagil davar rachok yoter midavar hanireh. Something that's heard is more distant, it's less clear than something that is seen. They saw that which is normally distant from us in a very close, tangible manner. They saw the revelation of God to Moshe without any separation, without any buffer, without any filtering, that will hold them back from seeing this clarity. Therefore, the Torah testifies the and Moshe, they will trust in you forever. Someone who experienced such a thing, their faith became eternal. And the example I always like to give is, if I hear someone outside, right, and it sounds like Basil, right, and then Colin walks in. Right. So what do I say? I say. What I do say is, Colin, you sure sounded like Basil. I don't say, Basil, you sure look like Colin. No. Right. In other words, what we see, right, will override that which we hear. Okay. So it's Colin, you sound like Basil, not Basil, you look like Colin. Right? They saw the words, they heard, they saw these voices. To them, it was absolutely clear, tangible. It was full reality. Right? This is from Aish.
The only way you would know it was Colin is if he didn't ask you for money.
Okay, from Aishkam, and always a good thing to do around the time of the holidays. Go to aish.com, and there is a wealth of great, great material. The people who stood at Mount Sinai perceived the soul world with absolute clarity, while the physical world receded into the remote distance, generally occupied by spiritual matters. A meeting between the congregation of Israel and God taking place at this high level of spirituality clearly exposed the spiritual connection that exists between all Jews, as well as the connection between God and Israel. It is not by accident that when Moses retells the events of Mount Sinai in Sefer Dvarim, in Deuteronomy, he concludes with a classical statement of the absolute unity of God. Right? Shema Yisroel, the unity of God and the Jewish people, and their unity with each other, the Shema Yisroel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Once that clarity was evident, once that was revealed to us, then our connection to God, our connection to one another was overwhelming. Rav Dessler writes, each Shavuot, we spiritually arrive at the same point of sanctity experienced by our forefathers at Mount Sinai. In other words, every holiday we say what happened in those days, Bazman Hazeh. We don't view the timeline of history as starting at a point and stretching out. We view it as these cycles that we keep revisiting certain points. So just like we understand that Rosh Hashanah was not simply the day where Adam was first judged, but it's the day where we are judged on a yearly basis. We re-enter that judge zone, and we understand that Yom Kippur is not simply the day when we receive the second tablets and thus we were forgiven, but it is a day of forgiveness for us. So too, it's like that Epcot world, you enter the pavilion. So too, each holiday, we enter the pavilion of spiritual availability that is there for each of those holidays. Pesach is the time of our freedom, the time of our liberation. Not just then, but we re-enter that as a time for our personal liberation, for whatever it is that constrains us. That's why Pesach has to be, the Torah says, in the springtime. Why? Because what happens in the physical world is a reflection of what's available in the spiritual world. And springtime is this blossoming forth, this growth that's available. So the Passover has to be in springtime, because that is when we are correctly aligned with that spiritual potential that is there at that time. So too, Rav Dessler says over here, we are entering into the pavilion of Torah giving. We spiritually arrive at the same point of sanctity experienced by our forefathers at Mount Sinai. It is once again, in a real sense, Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of the giving of our Torah, and we are invited to accept it anew, as they did 3,000 and change years ago. On Shavuot, we have to work in order to receive the Torah. We have to struggle to acquire it in our hearts. We have to appreciate its truths as unchangeable verities. The nation still harbored lingering doubts. Only when they heard God's voice at Sinai was doubt replaced by absolute certainty. So too, when we learn Torah today, especially at Shavuot time, we can, if we wish, still hear that same voice.
Rabbi, when
Yes.
we have to work, didn't we do most of that through the so-called Chol Chamoed period of the 49 day?
That's the idea. But now it's time to utilize that effort.
Right, but he's seeming to indicate that we have to.
That's true.
Both
are true.
Okay.
You have to work, you have to prepare, and then you have to make sure that you obtain that which you've been working to attain.
So what's optimal? Should we for the afternoon? Should we be reading Chumash?
If we can, absolutely. If you're up the whole night and you take a little nap, right, you can also understand that. But absolutely to be immersed, absolutely. Rav Dessler continues. We could appreciate the teaching of our sages. Beyomahu ba'u midbar Sinai. On this day they came to Midbar Sinai. Lo yitzrich l'ktov. It didn't need to say on that day. What do you mean on that day? Right? It should have said they arrived. We know they arrived on that day that they arrived, right? Rather, it comes to teach us, like we saw in the Kliyakar earlier, Sheyu Divri Torah Chadashim Alecha Kilo Hayom Nitnu, that we need to approach the words of Torah as if that day, Bayom Hazeh, as if that day it had been given. Dahainu, meaning, Ki B'chol Eitz Adam Lomed Et Torah, Karaui, whenever a person is learning Torah properly, Mekabel Shefach Hadash, Meid Hashem Yitbarach Mamash K'Veit Netinat HaTorah B'Sinai. He receives this inspiration. It's available for him from God as it was at the atmosphere at Sinai. Lachein Tamid Hu Bayom Hazeh. Therefore, we read the Torah on this day they came to Sinai. Meaning every day that we read that pasuk, it's that day. On this day we came to Sinai. Ka'oto Hayom Shabbat Sinai. Like the day that they did arrive, Bayom Hazeh. On this day we arrive at Sinai. So that is the holiday that is stretching before us, right? We have, there'll be a lunch and learn type of class. On Saturday night, after Mincha, normally we have our third meal then, Sudash Lishit. We can't have it, it's too close to Yom Tov, we'll have to eat it earlier in the day. So there's going to be a class with sources on organ donations. Organ donations and a Torah view on the permissibility, on the obligation, whatever it might be, of organ transplants, organ donations.
It'll be like at 7:30.
Davening is at 7:30. It'll be about 8 o'clock. We can't daven Ma'ariv until 8:45, which is when the day, the 49 days of preparation fully end. We davening Ma'ariv at 8:45, followed by a dairy meal here, followed by learning that will start in the social hall. And the focus of this year's Shavuot learning is I've identified 45 different people, and that is the transmission of Torah from Moshe to us today. And different people have volunteered, signed up to present, done a little research, and I was in someone's business yesterday. It's a meeting about something, and he said, before that though, he said, we have to talk about, and we had the whole conversation about his preparations for his presentation on Saturday night. So that's going to be the full night Saturday night, going all the way until about 4:30, 4:45. At that point, we usually do a little bit of a song and a dance, literally, to make sure that we have the blood flowing. Yeah. And then 5 o'clock, we start our davening, and we will time our Amidah, the Shemona Esrei that we reach, to be there exactly at the moment of sunrise, the earliest possible time and the most opportune time for prayer is to have the Amidah timed right there with the sunrise. That will be that's what's coming up. So come one and come all.
For those personages that are Navi, like Isaiah.